Let's go ahead and move on to our next story here, because I'm moving like a mile a minute. This one's super weird, and not just the story itself, but the path it took me on afterwards. What we're going to talk about here, and I was reading it, and I was like, this is a UFO story I can get behind. This is the story. This is Cash-Landrum. Cash-Landrum is a UFO incident that involved 3 people. This took place back in 1980. It involved 2 older women, considerably older. They were in their 60s or 70s when it happened. Betty Cash and Vicky Landrum, and there was a little kid in the back seat or a baby or something like that. They're driving down the road. They're in Texas. It's at night. And they see this diamond-shaped light vehicle that's illuminated, I guess that's a better way to put it, fly overhead. And they're like, what? What was that? They didn't cuss because they're from Texas. It's 1980 and they're Christian, which we'll find out later. The thing flies overhead and they're like, what the heck? What the tarnation? And so they keep driving down the road. It's kind of like an abandoned area. Not abandoned, but, not civilized, I guess. They're driving down the road for a bit more and it comes back over. And at this point, it kind of stops in front of them. And it was weird because you got this glowing diamond that's like, wow, 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 wow. So, and then Vicky says, that's Jesus. He will not hurt us. And she's like, let's get out of the car and go see this glowing diamond floating in the sky. So she talks Betty to getting out of the car. And the first thing they realized when they got out of the car was how hot it was. And they said they could see fire coming out of the bottom of it. And it was kind of like moving up and down, like the fire, almost like a hot air balloon was helping propel it up a bit. And it was just kind of hovering there. And it kept getting hotter and hotter and hotter as they were outside of their vehicle. At a certain point, they're like, dude, we need to get back in this car because otherwise we're going to melt. They jump back in the car and Betty said she actually had to use her jacket to touch the door handle to open it to get inside. It was that hot. And when she touched the dashboard of the car, her hand melted. Not her hand didn't melt, but pushed into the vinyl because the car was getting heated up. At this point, 23 Chinook helicopters show up. Some of them were Chinook helicopters, I should say. But it was 23 helicopters. They counted them. And they surround the diamond. And they're like, oh, what's going on? They're at this point, so the diamond had actually come down close enough that it was kind of blocking the road. The helicopters show up. I'm going to keep saying helicopters show up just so I can make the noises. It ain't me. It ain't me. The helicopter's flying around. They're playing Creedence Clearwater. And so the diamond slowly starts to go up and takes off. And the helicopters are like, ah. And they didn't actually scream. But anyway, so they drive away. Now, these young ladies, why am I saying they're young? I know they're 80. These old ladies go home. And they go to sleep. They're like, that was weird. Next morning, they wake up. They're super sick. They're like vomiting. They're nauseous. No, they did not eat at Taco Bell. Their skin started to boil. And they're like, oh my God. They started getting these burns on them. Betty ends up after a couple days, she keeps getting sicker and sicker. She can't even move. They take her to the hospital. And both Betty and Vicky, the nurses, are like, oh my God, you guys look like you're burn victims, which is not something you want to hear when you walk into a hospital. They actually are like, we don't know what happened to us. We don't know why we're so sick. And some people go, maybe there was radiation. So people have gone out there with Geiger counters. There's no radiation. So they go, well, there's this other type of radiation that could have caused it. Some people thought it could have been some sort of aerosol, some sort of self-defense mechanism released by the vehicle, the UFO, not their car, to mess with them. So no one's ever been able to pin down and say exactly this. What they did was they said, you know what? That UFO was whatever it was. It's from another planet. But the government must have known about it because all those Chinooks were there, and that's a government helicopter. Those are generally used by U.S. forces, and I think Britain might use them too. But so what happens was they actually contact their U.S. senators in the area, and the senators said, file a complaint with the Air Force Base and see what happens. And they weren't the only ones who saw this also. The 23 helicopters aside, there was 2 other cars in different parts of the area that saw the light. So people really took it seriously in that area. And of course, they're boiling. The people are all like, I saw a UFO. And you're not going to be like, oh, it was just swamp gas, as they're barely mobile and their eyes are burned shut. It wasn't that bad, but they were had physical issues with their skin and things like that. So the senators were like, well, why don't you file a complaint with the Air Force Base in the area? And they said, well, according to Wikipedia, it says that Cash-Landrum and Colby, I keep thinking Colby's an infant. How old is this kid? Anyways, the baby was talking apparently too. They were interviewed at length at Bergstrom Air Force Base, and they were told to hire a lawyer and seek financial compensation. This is where the story started to get a little weird. Now, I could see the senators going, well, you just file a complaint with the Air Force Base. But I can't imagine the Air Force Base going, so you're melted and you're vomiting for the past 5 years. You should sue us. No, what? Like, if I go into Mervyn's and I'm like, hey, I tripped on your shirt, they don't go, hey, well, you know what? You should sue us. That's when the story started to go sideways for me. Enter lawyer Peter Gersten. Took on the case pro bono. He says, I am going to do this. They were in court for several years, suing him for $20 million. And in 1986, so remember this event happened in 80. In 1981, they talked to the senators. Now we're 1986, and the judge dismissed the case. The judge dismissed the case and said that the plaintiffs could not prove the helicopters came from the U.S. government. And military officials testified that the United States Army does not have a large diamond-shaped aircraft in their possession. So it went to that level of court, where they were actually having witnesses come in and all of that stuff. Definitely too early for, like court TV. And I'm not saying that flippantly, but I'm saying like when courts are being recorded. But I'm sure you can find the transcripts of it. So I was like, still, that's a really interesting story. I started looking into the debunking stuff on it. The debunking is actually really weak on this one. The main point, there's two main points when they're debunking this. There's no way you could fly 23 helicopters in a group, like around something. And I was like, that does seem like a lot. And they were fairly insistent about the number. That's a lot of helicopters to be in an area and not crash into each other. So, I don't know. One of the other witnesses farther away said they saw 14 or 12 fly overhead. That sounds more believable than 23. And then the other thing was how sick and disgusting did Betty Cash look before the UFO? We don't know what her medical history was before the UFO. She might have always been covered in boils and vomiting all the time. So because we don't know what she was like before, we can't really say that the UFO caused that. And I can understand that in some sort of like liability lawsuit, which I guess that was that $20 million liability. But if someone's like walking around with boils and you can like look at photos of her pre-boil, come on. It is curious though, in the debunker's favor, that they said, well, let us actually look at the medical reports when he went to the hospital and reported this. And Betty was like, no, I'm not going to show them to you. Private, I don't want to release my medical reports. And now, to be fair, I don't think I would release my medical reports to a debunker, either. I mean, because if I've lost the lawsuit, what do I have to gain anyways? But they're saying, their whole thing is, we don't know how sick she really was. They can't really debunk the sighting because there was multiple witnesses. And I mean, they can try. And they can look at her and go, yeah, you're gross. But when did you get gross? It's their question. So interesting. Here's the key thing, though. I read that and I was like, okay, this is cool. This is a UFO story I could get behind. I keep saying UF. This is a UFO story I can get behind. It's fairly interesting. It's nothing too insane. I like this one. As I was looking at the debunking stuff, the lawyer's name popped back up. So 2012. You guys remember 2012, Mayan prophecy and all that stuff. Peter Gersten lives in Arizona. And he said, at 11/11/2012, I am going to climb up Bell Rock in Sedona. A dimensional portal is going to open up. I'm going to jump into it. Okay, so here's this quote. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's kind of boring, but most of you will think I'm delusional and that my insane act will certainly result in my death. Death is inevitable, at least nowadays. And 100 years from now, it won't matter whether I died in 2012 or 2013 or even 2020. But I believe that some type of cosmic portal will be opening at that time and place. And that an opportunity will present itself. I fully expect that it will either lead to the next level of this cosmic program, freedom from an imprisoning time loop, a magical Martian-like bubble, I don't know what that is, or something equally as exotic. So he climbs up. Yeah. And also, like a couple of months before 2012, a dolphin bites. He's snorkeling. He was diagnosed with cancer before this. And he was like, you know what? I'm just going to spend my life. He's doing fine. He's still alive. Spoiler alert, but it's in remission. But anyway, so he goes, but the story's not over. Not total spoiler. He's doing all this stuff, right? He goes snorkeling, and he's swimming with the dolphin, and a dolphin bites his arm. But when he looked down at his arm, he saw 3 long scratches, like where the teeth scratch his arm, and then one smaller scratch next to him. And he looked at his arm, and he put in his blog, he goes, the dolphin was trying to write 1111 on my arm. Because that's the time he has to jump into the portal. Why would you want this guy, free or not, working on your court case? They probably saw something. I don't think they saw nothing. They may have even seen some sort of craft that was being worked on. It could have been in just, having some trouble. The helicopter showed up. Could have been alien. I don't know. But I think that story's more believable, and it's more intriguing, honestly, than a bunch of lights just zipping around in the sky. This is like a close encounter of the second time they were impacted by it. Why would you hire this guy? Yeah, they didn't hire him. He was free. Why would you want this free dude working on your court case? He wants to jump into a portal. Now, to be fair, the court case was in 1981. He's talking about jumping into a portal in 2012. So maybe he wasn't as crazy back then, but, I bet you back then he was practicing jumping. Oh, yeah. This guy does practice jumping in portals. He climbs up to the Bell Rock all the time, still. Okay, so he doesn't jump in 2012. The county actually supposedly sent a helicopter up there to try to stop him. He was up there, and he waited around, and he was there for a while. He waited past the 1111. Portal didn't open up. He didn't jump. Now, see, it was originally called Leap of Faith because he was originally saying he would have to jump before the portal opened up to show that he had faith in the computer or cosmic computer program. But he didn't jump, he walked back down, and everyone was relieved. As I was researching him, I find this article, much more recent article. He turned 74 recently, and if you add 7 and 4, you get 11. 11's a mystical number, apparently. At 11:11 on his 11th birthday, he's going to jump off the Bell Rock. He has this obsession with jumping off the Bell Rock. And he says he needs to bring I just don't, this stuff's funny because I don't get how people get latched onto these certain ideas. He has to bring 2,222 people to the top of Bell Rock by 2222 of the winter solstice, December 21st of 2018. He's still doing this year. He's going to have to bring, now I don't think they all have to be up there at the same time. That would be incredibly dangerous. But before 2222, so what is that like? Before 10 o'clock, 10:12, why do I care? Why am I trying to figure out the time? The point is, he has to bring a bunch of people up, and he has like 3 months left to do it. And then he will be able to go to the next level of his quote-unquote holographic reality program. The one UFO story that I've looked at over the course of this show that I was like, that sounds really, really likely. This guy's tied into it. The Vortex Jumper. I gotta admit, I'm intrigued by this dude, but we all know he's not gonna jump this time either. I hope he doesn't jump, obviously. Oh, and some guy was like, hey man, don't jump. And he was like, don't you want to see something mystical happen? He's like, yeah, I want to see something mystical happen. But I don't want you to jump either. It's weird. It's delusion. I wouldn't be surprised if he's trying to get money. You know what? I'm going to get myself in trouble again if I start calling people frauds. But Peter Gersten, please don't ever offer to represent me in any sort of UFO-related trial. Because you just too weird even for diamond-shaped UFOs floating around Texas, giving people boils. And that is a high bar. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.